Hello, Americans. I'm Paul Harvey. You know what the news is. In half a minute, you're going to hear the rest of the story.
Hello, this is Melba Moore. You know, the odds can be against a pregnant teenager and her baby because teenagers have more high-risk babies born to them than any other age group, and more teenagers are pregnant now than ever before. The March of Dimes considers teenage pregnancy a most urgent priority in the total fight against birth defects. Please help protect the unborn and the newborn because they can't protect themselves. Give to the March of Dimes. Thank you.
Hi, this is Bob Newhart reminding you you're listening to the Ken Behrens Show.
I'll bet you never heard of Fred Carnot's comedians, but when the century was still young, this British comedy troupe was big time, not unlike today's Second City. At any rate, Fred Carnot was among Britain's most celebrated comedy producers, and for a novice to be accepted into his company was quite an honor. What do you know? Here comes a novice. And who could have known then and there that you would ever care when Arthur Jefferson arrived on the scene? In a moment, the rest of the story. The Heat Pump by Coleman. Same people who made the world brighter for your grandfather with the Coleman lantern. The Heat Pump by Coleman is an air conditioner in summer and a heater in winter. It saves money for you all the year round. For example, at 47 outdoor degrees, this Heat Pump by Coleman will deliver to your home $3 worth of heat for every $1 worth of electricity. The Heat Pump by Coleman is kind of new. You can't find them everywhere, but for details you can write to the Heat Pump, Box 2000, Wichita, Kansas. Box 2000, Wichita. Arthur Jefferson had been with Carnot's comedians for only 2 months. The troupe was due to open in London the following Monday. And for that occasion, producer Fred Carnot had put together a new comedy show entitled Jimmy the Fearless. And obviously, Carnot thought it impressive material. Everybody in the company seemed to agree. But during that week of rehearsal, the star, Carnot's #1 comedian, was curiously subdued. On Friday evening, producer Carnot sat in on the rehearsal. Everything seemed to be going well, but then after rehearsal was over, and without warning, the leading comic, the star of the show, announced he was calling it quits. He said he'd done his best to make the lines come to life, that it was impossible, no way would he waste his talent on such an uncomical comedy. Why not give the part, he said, to the new boy in the company, Arthur Jefferson. Well, producer Fred Carnot, who was facing the temperament of his talented company member, had his back against the wall. In 2 days, in one way or another, the show had to open. And this was not some pub in Glasgow. This was a Piccadilly theater in London, the big time. And whoever accepted the lead role now, with so little time left in which to rehearse, would have to be either foolish or brilliant or both. And newcomer Arthur Jefferson accepted the challenge. He rehearsed all day Saturday and all day Monday. If he made it in London, he was on his way, of course. If he bombed, it would mean relegation to small potatoes vaudeville for the rest of his life. And on Monday night, when the curtain went up, the troupe's top man. Now, this is the comic who had declined the lead in the show. He was sitting in the front row. And he watched as the mild-mannered substitute, Arthur, was transformed into a comic showstopper. The show was a hit. Arthur was an overnight giant in classic comedy. And each night, during the weeks the show ran, the comedian who had abandoned the starring role, who had walked out on it, he sat in the front row. Now, eventually he would rejoin the troupe and reclaim the role, but by then Fred Carnot's comedians had another celebrity in their midst, a new discovery, Arthur Jefferson. I can't tell you why the top comic dropped out of the show in the first place. Present-day connoisseurs of comedy disagree, but I can't help believing that in an unselfishness rare in theater, but characteristic of him, he stepped aside on purpose. Sensing that the newcomer Arthur Jefferson had potential, he knew this was the only way to put that potential to the test. And he stepped aside to give Arthur Jefferson that chance. For you see, Fred Carnot's #1 player, the established comedian, the one who backed out at the last minute, was Charlie Chaplin. And Arthur, the soft-spoken substitute, the mild-mannered novice, who might have remained in the background forever had he not been thrust into the spotlight, Arthur Stanley Jefferson became Stan Laurel of Laurel and Hardy. And now you know the rest of the story.